where the saran wrap or the plastic wrap is not absorbent, so it makes textures without taking any of the color away. Yes. Okay, I think we're ready to start. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here tonight on our paint night. Every Tuesday, pretty much, 7:15 Central Standard Time. I'm Sarah Cray, and we do a different watercolor project every single week, and we paint it live so you guys can ask questions along the way, and really just to hang out. I have a good time. So.
It'll be fun with you.
It's fun to watch.
Yeah, it is.
You're also getting paid though, so.
Yeah. Hey,
does that
I
count?
watch it, but I'm not here.
I don't have an argument at all.
Mostly I watch it because I hope you'll embarrass Keenan somehow, and I'll get.
Oh, don't worry, I fire
I've
him
been
almost
fired,
every time.
Yeah.
So tonight we are painting our Surreal Mountains. Super fun project. And we have a couple people here tonight. We have Suzanne. This is Keenan's wife.
Hi.
So I'm so glad she's here to paint with us. We have Nicole. You guys know who she is. And we have Keenan doing camera work.
In the back.
That's that voice you will hear that is deep and does not match ours. And Brock's hanging out too. I don't know how long he'll stay, but hello, Brock.
She's here for chicken wraps and sweet tart jelly beans.
And banana bread.
And banana bread. Okay.
Yes, I made banana bread.
We are doing this project in 4 steps. Step number 1, we're going to put our sky in. Step number 2, we are going to put in our mountains. And usually when you're doing landscapes, you want to work from the back to the front. So we'll put our farthest mountain in first and then work our way forward. Step number 3, we are going to do our birds. And the very last step are the leaves.
They're so pretty.
And I don't know if you were on overhead cam so they could see that, but
Yeah. Oh,
that's what we're doing. No, it's great. We have 2 brushes. Round 6 and a round 2. I named mine. This is Hank and this is Keith. Keith is smaller, because doesn't it sound a little bit meek?
Keith.
Keith and Hank.
Meek is a good phrase, yeah.
Meek is not a negative thing.
No.
I'm meek. Well, no. Hank just sounds a little bit, you know,
Hank
like a
has
worker.
a thick mustache.
Yeah, Hank
Keith
for
does
sure
not.
has a.
Yes.
Keenan, excellent point.
Yeah.
Keith, not a thick mustache. Hank,
Correct.
yes.
That's exactly.
But you can use any brushes. Those are just the 2 we are using. And the colors. We have 4 colors. So we are using leaf green and lemon yellow and Tahoe blue and black. If you do not have our exact colors, that is okay. You can absolutely still do this project. If you're painting with your own supplies, we basically just want a blue, a green, a yellow, and a black. Just those 4 colors. And so we're gonna start with some warm-ups. Actually, let's draw our circle first. I always like to get the drawing done out of the way, so then once I pick up my paintbrush, I'm like ready to go. So I'm just using this round thing of labels to draw my circle, which we are all gonna share.
I love it.
So just use a pencil and lightly draw your shape. Now remember, you can do whatever shape your heart desires. This, what we're painting on our mountains can work for any shape. So we've seen mooses, we've seen triangles, we've seen hearts, all of them look excellent. So don't be afraid to do that.
I want to try the triangle now. That sounds awesome. Well, I mean later.
The triangle is really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Sarah.
Yeah.
There's a question.
Sure.
Hey guys, when you do the tutorial or live, can you name the equivalent for Dr. P.H. Martin's?
Sure, so the Dr. P.H. Martin's equivalent for this project is Norway Blue. You can use either daffodil yellow or lemon yellow. You can use olive green and then black. So those are the Dr. P.H. Martin equivalents.
So I just set this off to the side, so
Yes.
we do that after.
Yeah. Don't worry, we haven't gotten to our oath part yet, so it's okay. We're just drawing our circle first, and now we're gonna set that to the side. And we'll do our oath before we start to warm up. So everybody needs to raise your right hand, Brock, and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
Yeah, I promise to have fun.
Wow, deep.
I always have fun. I hope you guys do. And a lot of that is just a reminder that sometimes we don't realize that we are doing that. And so I like to just bring attention to that fact that sometimes we're automatically nervous or scared or worried that we're going to be bad. And that just takes the fun out of it. Comparison is the thief of joy. So let's get rid of that right there. And we're just going to have a good time. And if you like your painting in the end, it's a bonus.
As per usual, we're going to have a good time.
Yep.
As usual. Okay. So go ahead and get your paintbrush. We're going to do a couple warm-ups. So the very first thing that we're going to practice is our sky. So the process with this sky is we put down the color and then we use our paper towel to lift up the color to make cloud shapes. So we can practice that a couple of times before we do it on our actual painting. So go ahead and get your brush wet. Now after you get it back wet, I don't know what I started to say. Not even close.
Bat wet.
Back. After you get your paintbrush wet, hit it off the side a couple of times. You usually don't want to go straight from water to paper because that is too much water.
Puddles.
That would create pooling or puddles on your paper, and we try and avoid that. So hit it off the side. I want you to grab some blue, or really whatever color, since this is your warm-up. It's your painting.
Okay.
And I want you to make like a rectangle space. Now, before you start, you have to work quickly with this. If you wait too long for this to dry, then the color is going to soak into your paper and will not lift up as easy. So I'm just going to do like a rectangle spot, like so. That's nice and wet. And then almost immediately, I'm going to grab my paper towel and just start kind of blotting in cloud shape.
That's so neat.
It's so fun. And you can do this a couple of times so you guys can get used to it. And you can even play with like how dark you want your blue to be. So for example, if I am using a really dark blue, this is a dark value here, and then I put my paper towel in, that's about as light as my clouds are going to get. If I use a medium blue, then my clouds get a little bit whiter. And then here's a really light value. Now with the really light value, the clouds might not show up as much. So just kind of play with it and see what works for you. Now other things that you can use, for example, if maybe it's like dried too long, is you can use, sorry, let me see if I can get in here, a magic eraser. I thought I put one in here. Oh, here it is. So with magic erasers, these are wonderful magical things. Awesome. You can use them in watercolor. So you take a clean piece and dip it in clean water, and then you can lift up color from there. Now, if you rub really hard with this, it will destroy your paper. So don't go in here and do this, because already it's starting to tear up my paper. So when you're using this, you want to like be super gentle or just like pat and lift. Here, you guys can have a little piece if you want to try with it.
Thank you.
It's pretty fun. Okay.
Would a cotton ball work?
A cotton ball, I feel like this has like something about it that actually picks up watercolor.
I know what it is.
What is it, Keenan?
Magic.
You're right.
Good.
That's all we need. That's it.
Chemical of some sort. That's in
I know. It's the same thing that cleans your walls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It like,
When you have kids.
yes.
And shoes.
And
Yeah, and
anything
shoes.
really.
Oh, I need to try it.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
the only reason I bought Keenan a white pair of shoes is I knew we could get stuff. I need to risk it.
Now we're gonna play with our saran wrap really quick. So I'm gonna give you guys a piece so you guys can get used to that. Actually, can you tear that off for me? So what we do with the mountains is there's a couple different ways where I use the saran wrap, which is while the mountains were still wet, I just kind of blotted it and it just created these different textures within it. Another thing that you could do, and I've been seeing it a lot on what people are posting, which is really amazing, is they put the saran wrap on there, crinkle it up, and then let it dry. And then that's gonna create a more intense texture and pattern.
What'd you do, Sarah?
Listen,
How much do you need?
not a
Not
lot.
a lot, I don't think, right?
It starts right there.
Here. I mean, it doesn't have to be a totally clean piece
Oh, okay.
because
Then you're
we're going to crinkle it up. So like, that's good for you. So we can like practice making our mountain shape.
I said not a lot, like I knew what was going on.
Suzanne's like, listen, I'm a pro. Can you rip one off for me, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Here, take mine.
Oh, Robin says, caution for children, don't put magic erasers on the face because it will burn your skin.
So there is a chemical in it.
There has to be
I
some
knew
kind of
something
cleaning
in there.
chemical in there.
It's like-
Good to know, Robin.
It
Thank you
leaves,
for
like,
that.
white film on stuff.
Okay, so we can play with that really quick here. So just grab any colors you want, blue, green, whatever, kind of mix it together. And you can make any shape. And then you can take your saran wrap and just crinkle it up and press it into the paper. And it's just going to create these interesting textures. Now while it's wet, so I'm pressing down and then I lift up. Now you're going to see that some of these are going to blend out because the paint is wet, so it's going to make it spread back out because it's wet. So if you were to do this and then press it there and then leave it until it dried, then those textures would stay. Oh, Stacy says maybe it's bleach that's in there. Maybe.
It doesn't smell like bleach.
I don't know.
Maybe it's like a minuscule.
Listen, I'm telling you, it's magic.
Oh, Judy did this same project in a shamrock shake.
Oh.
I mean shape, which was perfect for
That would be
St. Patrick's Day.
sweet.
So it's just really fun. Fun little shapes.
Mine are all gone already. Dang it.
That's okay. I did it both. So like in the first couple of mountains, they really kind of blended out. And then this one, it's a little bit more crinkly. Okay, the next thing that we are going to practice is we are going to practice just getting lighter values. So with watercolor, instead of having to add white paint to make a color lighter, we just add more water. And then that in itself is going to create a lighter color because the paper is white and that is what's showing through. So if you want a darker value, then you're gonna have more paint on your brush than water. So usually what I'll do is I'll wet my brush and then I'll just pick up paint from my pile. And that right there is a dark value. And then to get a lighter value, you simply just add a little bit of water. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to pick up any more paint. I'm going to swish my brush in my water like back and forth, just hit it off the side. There's more of a medium value. And then do it again, hit it off the side. There's my light value. And I want you to keep going until the color is like barely there. Because in watercolor, if we're familiar with any other type of painting, we very much want to lay it on thick, similar to how we would do acrylic or oil. But watercolor, the beautiful thing about it is the subtle layers of washes, just the light layers that just add so much by being barely there. So I want you to really embrace that aspect of watercolor because I think it like brings so much to it. So there. So even though that seems so light that you're like, people won't be able to see that, they will be able to see it in your painting. Okay. Now, oh, Lorianne says magic eraser has formaldehyde. I have to Google what's in these now, but let me tell you, for watercolor, they do wonders, and cleaning my walls when my children draw on them.
Mine actually took the paint off the wall.
Oh, really?
And I was like, all right, well, we're just going to leave this till we move, and then we'll...
Okay, so we're gonna practice our leaves. This will be the last thing we do before we start our painting. So I'm gonna switch to a smaller brush. So you can switch to your round 2, or if you wanna practice using your round 6, please feel free to, it's your life. So I want you to pick up some paint, and you can use whatever color you want. And what I usually like to do is I like to put my top leaf in first. So however tall I want my leaf to be, I'm going to put that top one in. So here's the top of my leaf. And then so I outline it and then I fill it in. There's nothing wrong with doing the outline first, but what I want you to keep in mind is with leaves, and this is a personal preference, so again, you can change this depending on what you like, is I like my leaves to have a narrow top and a narrow bottom. So I don't want my leaves to be like that kind of shape.
Like an oval.
Like an oval. I want it to be more like an eyeball or something, you know? So, after I do my top leaf, I then put in my stem. Now when you do stems, I really like really thin stems because I like delicate line work. So to get a thin stem, when you pick up the paint, you're going to swish your paintbrush back and forth to get it into a point. And then you are just going to do a vertical hold, so it's straight up and down pretty much. And then you're just going to lightly graze across your paper. Now with round brushes, if you're pressing hard, then it's going to do a thick line. So this is the same paintbrush, just different pressure applied. So try and keep that in mind when you're doing this to have lighter pressure. So after I do my leaf, I'll do my stem. And I like to move my arm, so I don't plant my hand. If I plant my hand, I'm limited in how long my stem can be. So if I plant my wrist and I'm trying to do my stem, that's about as far as I can make it. This is about as tall as I can go. But if you let your hand just graze your paper and use your shoulder to guide it, then you can go as long as you need to.
Smooth like butter.
And it's smooth, smooth little line. So after I do my stem, then I'll just add leaves on my little stem. Now you can make them asymmetrical, which means the leaves don't match up, they don't mirror each other, or you can make them mirror each other. You can have little stems coming off the main stem and then do your leaf. Really, the sky's the limit, you know what I mean? You can make some of your leaves really long and thin, like so. These are my longer and thinner leaves. Or you can make them like itty bitty baby things. Do, 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 do. And I'm gonna do a mixture because I like variation in my paintings. But just practice different ways you can do leaves. Make some small, make some longer. Try and play with the different sizes and slightly shapes. Wonderful.
Fun.
So good. And if you ever run out of ideas for leaf shapes, you're welcome to look at the reference and see what the different shapes are going on in there. Totally up to you. Okay. Laura Lynn asks you leave the saran wrap on the painting until the paint dries. If you want a darker edge and stronger texture, then yes, you leave the saran wrap on until the painting is dry. I didn't leave mine on very much. I kind of just blotted it to get this kind of funky thing. It's totally up to you. You can decide that for your painting. All right, you guys ready? Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
I was going to read one more fact about the magic eraser.
Okay.
Magic erasers are made of melamine foam. No other chemicals needed because they become hard when wet like fine sandpaper. Some material used in different types, same material used in different types of insulation.
Oh.
Actually, no formaldehyde. The chemical type burns simply are from the abrasiveness of the product.
Oh, so
it's
there's
like,
no chemical in there. It's just that it's like sandpaper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good to know. Thank you. You guys are so knowledgeable.
So great.
Okay, let's get started. So what I like to do you have the pencil?
Yes.
So this is totally up to you. You can do this if you want. But sometimes what I like to do, if I'm going to do a landscape like this, is I sometimes lightly draw in my mountains. So you can make your mountains whatever shape you want. They can intersect however you want. There are a ton of different like hills and mountain shapes, so it's not wrong. Whatever you're doing, it's not wrong. And you can just start putting them in. So sometimes I'll just take a pencil and lightly draw them.
This is the most intimidating part for me. It's like freehanding.
It
freaks me out.
I know if you're not familiar with drawing, this can seem super scary, but just keep in mind that it's like you literally can't mess this up.
Oh.
It's like just like a hump.
Can I see that?
Yeah. Whatever you do, it's not wrong, Suzanne. That's what you have to remember.
Not wrong.
Whatever you
Never
draw
wrong.
on your paper, it's not wrong, even if it's different from mine.
Give me that pencil.
So just lightly put them in. And that way, just for me, I know how far down my sky needs to go. But if you decide to like freehand it and not draw it in, good for you. That's living on the edge. I love that type of living.
Yes.
I like to try and do it when I can. We have a cup here that says it.
The mug is ready.
Okay. And remember, try and do it light because watercolor is transparent, so you will see those pencil lines through the paint. A couple people asked how they can keep like their edges tight on their circle. So a couple things that you can do is you can try and get some painter's tape to shape around the circle. It would be much easier if you're doing like a triangle, since this is like a hard edge. Or another thing you can use is, what is that called? It's fluid, it's like glue.
Liquid.
Yeah.
I think it's called liquid fluid.
No, it's not. It's not called fluid liquid.
Tape stuff or
Oh my gosh.
that you use.
People
we
use it in
used
lettering.
We use it in watercolor.
You guys have it.
Masking.
Let's get back to it.
Yes.
I was like, it is liquid.
Liquid masking fluid. Masking? I don't know.
Fluid. It's masking.
Masking fluid.
Masking
Is there
fluid
not some on
sounds
the
right.
shelf?
We have some in the shelf on the store. We sell them on the store. It's just like this bottle of liquid. It's essentially liquid glue.
haven't used
When you apply it, it will dry. Masking fluid.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
That was a group effort. That was a true group effort to come up with that.
You can put it around the edge of your painting, and then when it dries, you can paint, and then when everything is dry, you softly rub it off, and it keeps whatever's underneath it totally clean and white. So it's a super handy tool to have, really fun. All these people are like, masking fluid. Yeah.
I have a different suggestion for how you could get a tighter circle.
Okay.
If you use I would think if you use like a thick cardstock and cut out a circle
Yeah,
and
Kanan.
then trace that.
Yes,
That's what I would do.
that's a good idea.
Yeah. Thanks.
Good suggestion.
Thanks. Nice. Nice.
Okay.
Someone just wanted to see that.
Oh, sorry.
No. I was just.
Somebody asked also if I use watercolor pencils for this part. Sometimes I do, yes. Watercolor pencils are great because the line disappears whenever water adds to it. So this would be a great project to do it with. I usually don't do it with animals because I usually draw lines around like shadows and highlights, and I would have lost those because you usually do layers. But this is great. Okay, now let's get started. You guys, let's paint. So we're gonna start off with our round 6. We're gonna put our sky in first. Now remember, you gotta work quickly on this if you want lighter clouds. So I'm gonna get my 6. I'm gonna get it nice and wet. Now sometimes what I like to do is put water down first and then put in the paint and blend it out, or you can apply them simultaneously. There's not a wrong way with this. So I'm just gonna start with putting some water down. And I think I like to do this because that way I know that I'm staying within the line by putting the water down first. And if I go outside the line, then I just wait for it to dry and then do it again. So I put my water down. I'm gonna grab some blue, kind of put it in at the top, and then just kind of blend it down. Now if you have a bigger paintbrush, like around 10 or 12 or 16, this would be probably a handy time to use it because you would fill in the space faster just because it's bigger. Okay. And if you got to overlap your mountains a little bit to get all those little areas in between, nothing wrong with that. Okay, now I'm gonna take my paper towel and put in some clouds. And you can make them whatever shape you want. If you want them long and skinny, you can do that. If you want them nice and big and round, you can do that. It's your painting. And also what I want you to keep in mind is that clouds have color to them, even though they're white. If you look at the clouds, there's different values within the cloud. So if some parts of your cloud are really white and then some are more like a light blue because not all that paint came off, that's okay. That's how we actually see them. And if anything, it might actually create a little bit more depth to them. So embrace that part of it. Or if you want to try using your magic eraser,
I didn't work quickly enough.
you can try and whiten up some areas. Now my blue value is pretty light, so even if these were to be stark white, you wouldn't see them as well in my light area. But that's okay. We're just going for like a hint, just a hint of cloud. Ooh, that looks really cool.
I just picked up some blue with, because it was so white, but I picked up some blue with a paper towel.
I want to try that. Okay, what Nicole was doing is she was creating blue, she was putting blue back into her cloud by using her paper towel. So she was going in, she picked up a little bit of blue on her paper towel.
Like super light.
Like really light, maybe that's too dark. And kind of put it back in. I like that. Fun. Okay, we're moving on. You ready? Yours looks like a storm of brewing. It's really cool.
I was just saying, watercolor is so cool how it just does its own thing.
It does its own thing, and when you embrace it, you let it do its work, and you just love it. You just love all of it. Okay, so we're gonna start on our mountains now. We finished step 1. Good job, you guys. Congratulations. So we are going to do our mountains. We're going to work on the back first. Now, what I want you to keep in mind, remember how we practice our lighter values and our darker values? When you're painting a landscape, what you want is things that are farther away in the painting are going to be a lighter value and not as contrasty. So they're kind of even in value and they're lighter in value. And then when things get closer in the painting, they get more value and they get more light and dark values. That's how things come into focus. And that technique is called atmospheric perspective. It's super handy. So when you do your farthest mountain, you want to get a really, really light color. Think of like the barely there color that we got when we were practicing our values. So I'm gonna grab my round 6 and I'm gonna grab a little bit of green and a little bit of yellow. Now this is where you guys can make your own creative choices. If you like more of a blue-green compared to a yellow-green, feel free to put a little bit of blue in there and make more of a turquoisey mountain. Totally up to you. I'm going to start with more of a yellow-green and then add blue as I come forward.
YouTube says, actually Lisa says, the struggle with plastic wrap is real.
The struggle is real. Do you know what is amazing that I use is the saran wrap that's like one side is more like glue. So it just like...
Oh, like the press and seal?
Press and seal.
That stuff's amazing.
Changed my life. Haven't bought saran wrap in years except for this.
Wow.
Yeah, so much better.
We have some and I never use it.
You should, because it's really great. Okay, so I'm going to put my farthest mountain in first. So you can see it's just a really light green color. Just like barely there. Now, you're going to be like, Sarah, what happens? And I'm like, oh shoot, that's too dark. What am I going to do? Calm down. It's not a big deal. You can either, if you work quickly, just use your paper towel to lift it up. Or, if it's been there for a second, what you want to do is you put a little bit of water in that area and you can either lift the color up with your paintbrush or use your paper towel to lift up the extra color. So if you put in your first value and you're like, that is too dark, that's okay. Not a big deal. Just pick the extra color up. Now you might be like, I don't know if this is light enough or not. So I think that's light enough.
Okay.
You don't have to match my lightness. What I'm going to challenge you to do is to work off your own painting. So this could be darker if you want it to be darker. You just have to make sure that your next mountains are darker than the previous ones. Okay. That's all you got to make sure you're doing. So even if your first mountain is more of a medium value, that's okay. Just make them more darker as you come forward. So work off your own painting and do what's right for your own painting. Okay, now I'm gonna move on to my next mountain. So I'm gonna use that same green. I'm just gonna bring a little bit more color into it. Now sometimes a problem that we have with watercolor is when we try and use a lighter value, we end up having a lot of water on our paper because in your head you're thinking, I need to have a lot of water on my brush. And it makes sense that you would think that. But what I like to do is I will mix water into it to get a lighter color. And then sometimes I will get the excess off of my brush. So I still have that same water to paint ratio, I just have all of the extra water gone. So then when I start to paint, it's not a pool on my paper. So if you're running into that problem, remember that the paper towel is your friend and you're gonna wanna use it. Okay, so next layer, I'm gonna make sure it's a little bit darker. And I'm gonna try and keep, if your first layer is still wet, do a little bit of a thin white line in between, because if this was wet and then I try and put a wet edge into there, it will bleed out like that. And I would lose my hard edge. So if that's happening to you, sometimes what I'll do is I'll leave like the thinnest, whitest, like just the tiniest little thin white line in between. Or you can just wait for it to dry. Nothing wrong with that. So I put my color in, and then I'm gonna just like spread this color down to my next mountain edge. And this is where you can start dropping in other colors. So I did my green wash, and now I'm just gonna like do a tiny bit of like hint of yellow, or maybe a hint of blue. Now I know in previous tutorials or projects where we've done mountain ranges, I really emphasized keeping an even value. In this project, you don't have to worry about that as much. So it's okay if within your mountains you have lights and darks. It doesn't have to be totally smooth in value. So don't be afraid of kind of really playing with that. Good job. Do you know what this kind of reminds me of? Mario.
Mario.
Doesn't it?
Mario Kart?
Or no. Like just like standard.
Classic Super Mario.
Like yeah, just like Super Mario.
Yeah.
The greens, the blue.
Yeah.
The rolling hills in the background.
The rolling hills in
Yeah.
the background.
That's true.
Yes.
I didn't even think of that.
Okay. So I'm gonna work on my next little mountain area. I'm gonna add a little bit more color to my pile that I'm pulling from, so it's gonna be a darker value. And I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna start. Now, this is about the time where you can make your edges a little bit jagged, right? Because like, there's like grass and trees and like rocks. So don't be afraid to get some funky shapes in there. So you'll notice that when I'm doing my line, I'm holding my brush up and down so I get a thin line. And then when I'm ready to fill it in, I'm actually doing more of a horizontal hold, and that's gonna get a thicker brush stroke. So I'm using the entire brush, the belly of the brush, to do a thicker line, and that just fills in the space like faster. So instead of having to go in here like this, it's like bam. So much quicker.
Bam.
Bam.
You're like Emerald Lagasse over here.
Yeah. Actually, never mind. I was going to make a trademark joke, but.
Oh, that one gag. It says bam.
Am I allowed to say bam? Did he trademark that? Now, if you're like me and you love color and you like living on the edge, guess what? Grab a big swoop of yellow and just drop that in there. Drop that in there, smear it around. Really like go for it, you know? Get some textures in there. Now, if you want to grab your saran wrap and get some funky things going on in there too, now is the time. You can also drop in a little bit of blue. I love a good green blue. It's really pretty. But you can see my mountains are getting slightly darker in value as I'm making my way forward.
I can hear you inhaling.
Can you really?
It's really quiet.
It's still quieter than Brock's breathing.
Brock does do a heavy sigh sometimes.
It's adorable.
Okay. Man, I'm getting some cool stuff going on in there. I love it so much. That like watermark or that bloom going on in there. Maybe after this step we'll do like a check-in.
See how everyone's doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. Da, da.
I could read a fact for you that's on Facebook.
I love facts.
Linda says, fact. The wife of the man who invented press and seal is a card maker and has a large YouTube following. Also fact.
A card?
She says she is afraid of watercolor paint.
What? What is her name? I will send her a kit today.
Well,
And that's amazing.
that is amazing.
I wonder what their name is. I want to do all of the research now.
Maybe Linda will know.
The inventor of what?
Brock commented,
Press and seal.
he said, I hear you throwing shade. Brock, Brock, you know we love you.
Definitely throwing shade, Brock.
Okay, so we'll do a little check-in. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Go for it. Oh, I didn't do surrender.
So we have Nicole's painting here. First of all, I really want you to take a moment and appreciate this sky. I love what's going on here, super cool. I think your value changes are good. I would maybe want to darken this one just a little bit, or maybe put drops of yellow or blue, because this is reading a really even green to me.
Yeah.
So just to add a little bit of color interest or variation, maybe do a little bit more color. I wouldn't worry about it in these far too, but starting in this one, I would add that in there.
Cool.
But it looks really great.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Suzanne's here. This is looking really good. I love the texture she's getting in here and this yellow that's happening right there, this dark green at the top. Now this is where it's really interesting too, because when I say pay attention to what your painting is doing compared to the values with each other, this and this transition feels really good to me. But this one is a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
So if that's happening where that first hill you laid down is so much lighter than the other two that it's almost distracting, do another wash on top of that hill, bring it back to where these are closer to these are, because we want it to be, we don't want crazy jumps in between or from one to another. So all you have to do is just bring that back to where these are and you'll be good to go.
I thought it was too bright, so I like mopped them up and down like, dang it.
But there's nothing
just
wrong.
left it.
You can totally
That's
add, yeah, you can totally just do another wash on top of it and you are good to go. Okay, let's do our,
Good tip. Yes.
what?
Good tip. Add a yellow.
Oh, yeah,
yellow's
let's see.
good, I like that.
Nicole added some yellow in there. She got some great textures too because of it. Yes. So good. Okay, let's move on to the next mountain. I am going to grab some green, and I'm going to grab a little bit more blue with this one because I want it to be a little bit darker. And I'm just going to start putting that in. This layer is pretty dry since I talked a lot, so I can just go straight into it. This is very different from my example. I went back down on this one and this one, I just kept on going. But that's okay, nothing wrong with that. Okay, so I'm putting my color in. I'm using kind of water to spread it out. I'm using a little bit more blue in this one. And that's just because I really like the color. And as these mountains get closer to us, they're going to have a darker and lighter contrast to them. So usually I try and fill my mountain up fairly quick. And then I'll add color, water drops for texture. And then if you want to grab that saran wrap.
I'm kind of obsessed with this color mixture.
It's so good. The blue and the green mixed together. So good. Oh yeah, look at that. Maybe I'll do it a little over here too. And remember, you can make your little mountain have like more of a jagged edge if you want. Don't be afraid to just like take a chance. Remember, it's just a piece of paper. So if you're like, I wonder what it would look like if I did this, just go for it and just try it. The very worst thing is that you throw away a piece of paper. That's the worst thing that's gonna happen. And it's when you take those little chances that you find really cool things. Heidi asked what kind of saran wrap. Well, I guess I'm just using Always Save plastic wrap.
I'm gonna put that on the front, just full screen.
I guess saran wrap is its own brand, so I guess I shouldn't say saran wrap. Just plastic wrap or a plastic bag or whatever.
Where did you get Always Save plastic?
Oh, Always Save is from High Class.
Oh, High Class.
High Class, which is in Hamilton, Missouri. It's our little grocery store in town.
And it's spelled H-Y-K-L-A-S.
High Class, H-Y-K-L-A-S.
High class spelling.
In case you're confused on how to spell high class, that is the way.
That is how
High
you
class
spell
spelling
it.
for high class. I like want to let this dry. That's the only way I'm gonna get cool. Like.
So if you want it to dry, if you want that really strong texture, what you would actually do is you would leave it, and you can even use some painter's tape, or you can just like leave it stuck to it. Or if you want it to stay in a specific position, you can use painter's tape to tape it on. So you would like tape this edge or maybe this edge. I'll probably do that a little bit more with my last mountain that I'm gonna do, because I'm gonna then move on to another part of the painting and it won't be in the way. Okay. In the UK, they call it cling film.
Ooh.
Cling film?
Cling film.
I like that.
It's not wrong. It's actually a way better descriptor than what we have.
It really is. Cling film.
Yeah, where'd they get Saran? Is that just like the
That's the brand name.
Like,
Like Q-tips. Q-tips are a brand name. They're not the actual name of the thing.
What is the name of the thing?
Cotton swabs.
Cotton swabs.
Yes.
It's like Kleenex too.
Yeah.
And tissue paper.
Okay, so
We're known in all kinds of
Kanan's mind is being blown right now. He's like,
What?
what?
What has been renamed? What's my name?
Kanan's like, who am I? What is this? Is this called a
to
t-shirt?
go.
Is there a brand called t-shirt? What is anything? Okay, so we're gonna do our very last mountain. Now this mountain should be your darkest. This is where you're gonna have lots of paint on this guy. So really go for it, is what I'm trying to say. Just load up your paintbrush. Don't fear it. I actually want a little bit more blue. Actually, I'm just gonna use for,
Yeah,
you got a ton.
Hey, you
Here,
loaded it up,
Nicole.
not me. Thanks.
Sorry, Nicole, I just left you in
Look
the
at
dust
this
there.
color I just got.
Oh, I
Love
love
it.
that.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
So
Okay.
excited.
So I'm just gonna go for it. I just gotta make sure, at least this edge from where this mountain is meeting this mountain, you just have to make sure that is darker. If you gotta mix a tiny bit of black in there to get that, do it. Don't mix too much black, because if you mix a lot of black, it's going to dull your colors. It's actually gonna make them a little bit more gray. But you do what you gotta do to get that dark value. You know what I'm saying?
All right, mine just went like blue. That's all right. We'll fix it.
If yours is too blue, just drop in some yellow. So really mix in that dark color, heavy paint, which just means lots and lots of paint you're picking up here. And I'm going to drop in a little bit of yellow, because that black really, you can see that that black kind of grayed my green pretty good. So just be aware of that. Okay, now another really cool thing if you want some interesting textures is you can actually just do straight water droplets onto your paper. When you drop water onto your paper like this, the pigment or the color actually is going to move to the edges. That's cool.
Like on
I would leave
accident.
that.
That literally just happened.
That's so cool. So Nicole had a little bit of an accidental bleed where this touched this mountain and that bled into there,
That's really
but
cool,
that's
though.
so cool. So leave it.
Okay.
It just like, whoa. When those happen
It's so
in your
fun.
painting, embrace those. Even though like you're like, but I wanted to keep the edge hard and that's what Sarah said to do. Don't listen to me when cool things like that happen.
Yeah.
Just let them happen because they're way cool. Okay, now, if this is where you want to put in like your saran wrap and tape it down, feel free to. I will say a word of caution. If you are using the saran wrap and it's going across the entire thing, that color will go over the circle edge because I'm pressing the saran wrap and it's going to move that color to the edge of that, if that makes sense. So I'm going to try and keep my saran wrap within the hill and not outside of it so it won't kind of go over.
That's a really good tip.
It might still go over a little bit, but it's like, what can you do? You know, it's not a huge deal. Susan's like, don't listen to Sarah when cool things happen. That's exactly what I'm telling you to do. So I'm just gonna let this be on there. But if you wanna tape yours down, actually, maybe I'll tape
Do you want
it.
something? Oh.
And like I said, like, don't listen to me when cool things happen. We're gonna do some leaves at the end, but if you have really cool textures on this bottom mountain from your saran wrap and you don't wanna cover them up with the leaves, don't cover them up. Let them be, you know? Okay. Okay, we have finished step 2. That was a very long step, but that was most of our painting. So you guys are doing a really awesome job. The last 2 steps are just like little things here and there. So we're gonna do our birds next. Now the reason why I gave space between the sky and the birds is we wanted to make sure that our sky is completely dry before we put in birds. We want our birds to be nice and sharp, and if the sky is wet and we try and put something in there while it's wet, it's gonna bleed all over. So there's a couple things I want you to keep in mind when you're doing these birds. One thing, and if you watch the pre-recorded tutorial, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but birds are not always in the V shape. And I think I actually posted on Instagram a picture of a bunch of birds, like a group of birds flying, so you can see the different silhouette shapes.
I wondered why you did that. Now it makes sense.
Yes. If you're like, why is she posting pictures of birds flying?
They're cool. Birds are great. I like birds.
Suzanne's like, I love birds. She really gets me. So I know that when we're thinking of birds, this is what we're thinking. Like just this same shape over and over again. But here's the thing. Birds are constantly in different movements because they got to flap those wings. So they won't usually always be like this all the time. Some of them are, but sometimes like you only see the tiny back of the other bird like that. So there's a wing, there's the body. Sometimes it will be more like this. Sometimes the wings actually line up. So it's more like that. So try and keep that in mind when you're doing these shapes. And I know that if you were to look at this by itself without any context, you'd be like, what is that? However, when you give our viewers context, as in other bird shapes in a sky, they're gonna make that connection. So don't feel like you have to listen to your brain being like, no, they're always this shape, so people know. We're giving them enough information where they're gonna look at those and be like, oh, those are birds. Yeah. So don't stress if one of your bird shapes is a little bit wonky. It doesn't matter. Now, the other thing I want you to keep in mind when you're doing these birds is we also play with value, similar to our mountains. So you can see I have some nice, sharp, crisp birds right here, nice and black. And then I have some that are more of a gray and smaller. And that's because I'm communicating that those birds are farther away from me. So just by making them a lighter value and slightly smaller in shape, it automatically pushes them back into the painting and it gives our painting a little bit of depth. So when you're doing your birds, I want you to keep in mind the silhouette that you're making and the value that you're making them. So I'm going to grab my painting. And I'm just going to start putting birds in. And maybe you really like your painting so far and you're really afraid to put in birds because you're afraid you're going to ruin it. Just take a deep breath and go for it. You just got to be like, I'm not scared of you, piece of paper. I can always paint you again. It's just a piece of paper. So I'm going to just put in some little birds. So I'll do my like super dark ones first and then I'll rinse my brush and do a light gray for my other ones. Okay, so I have some birds. Now I'm going to add a little bit of water to my mixture to lighten them up. Now again, use your paper towel to get rid of the excess water so it's not a pool or a puddle on your painting. And just put some. And remember, you can put as many or as little birds as you want. This is your painting. Oh, I'm switching to my smaller brush for this, so this is my round 2.
You mean Keith?
Keith, yes. We're switching to Keith. Wouldn't it be funny if somebody goes into an art store and is like, do you carry any Keith brushes?
I need Keiths.
I need a Hank.
We got a guy named Hank in the back.
Keith has a hipster small mustache.
Totally.
And
Yep.
Hank has a
Yeah.
one like that.
Like Winston on New Girl,
Yeah.
thin and creepy.
And creepy, just like that.
I didn't say that.
Terry asked if I do uneven numbers when I'm doing my birds, similar. So composition-wise, if you don't know, or just design in general, odd numbers tend to be more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. As opposed to even numbers. Now, when I'm doing groupings like this, I don't pay attention to that because they're so small that I don't feel like it's actually going to make a huge difference. But in larger elements to my painting, like when I do the florals or like a composition in whole, that's when I pay attention to the number of things. But for this, since there's like a bunch of tiny ones, I don't notice it. However, if it bothers you, please feel free to use odd numbers. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna take off my saran wrap.
I'm afraid.
Look at that.
Ooh. I forgot about that.
Now I got a little bit of blending out on my paper, so I'm gonna see if I can just kind of wipe that up with my magic eraser so it's just soft. Now another thing that you can do, and I think I did this in the pre-recorded, is I actually just, when I did this in the pre-recorded tutorial, it bled a lot on the edge. So I just actually changed the shape of my circle and made it go down a little bit longer. So I just changed the edge. I do stuff like that all the time. So don't feel like because I paint a lot that I do it perfect every time. I just like hide my mistakes, essentially. That's what I do.
Just bury them down.
Yep. I just trick you guys like I know what I'm doing. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, I think that's good enough. And if I want, I can go back in and darken that up. Okay, so we are now in our very last step, my friend. Oh, I love your birds. Those look great too.
Thanks.
Okay, very last step, we're just gonna do our leaves. Now we want our leaves to be nice and sharp and dark. So if your painting is still very wet, don't do this part, just wait for it to dry. You can use like a heat gun or a hair dryer to help dry it if you don't wanna wait. But let's just go for it. So I'm gonna actually use a smaller brush, but you use whatever brush size you want. So I'm gonna take my little Keith, and I'm gonna grab black, but then you can mix a little bit of another color in there, so then it's not just like straight black. You can do like a really dark green or a really dark blue, or maybe you like straight black. It's totally up to you. So.
I don't know why you're calling it Keith out of the blue was so funny.
Is that why you started laughing? I'm like, grab my Keith, and you're like,
Grab my Keith.
Okay.
Oh,
And then just start putting in your leaves. I like to put my top leaf in first so I know how tall it is. So I'm gonna just start right there, put in my leaf, and then I'm gonna put in my stem. Now it's easier for me to do long, thin stems horizontally, so if I need to turn my paper to get a nice long thin stem, nothing wrong with that. There we go. And then I'm just going to start putting in my leaves. Now remember, you can always adjust the size of your leaves. Well, you can always make them bigger. Now the other thing with the leaves is I'm kind of, for the most part, I'm having them kind of turn inward so they're facing the center for most of them, so you can see that they're kind of turning inwards on this side and turning inwards on this side. So that's another thing that I kept in mind. I don't want to do them straight up and down, like all straight up and down, because that's such a strong direction that our eyes will see such a strong vertical line and it will automatically just go up and maybe even off the page. So if we kind of turn our leaves in, then that creates it so where the viewer's eye is going to stay within the painting and not go off the page.
Sarah,
Yeah,
Donna asked, whilst we do the leaves,
yeah.
would you be willing to
Uh-oh.
show a fern leaf?
A fern leaf.
And I can show you, I Googled a fern leaf in case you aren't sure.
Yeah, I can try if I'm picturing the right fern leaf. So the thing with fern leaves that are a little bit more tricky is they have a triangle shape. Yeah. So the fern leaf starts off narrow and then it gets wider as it goes down. And then as it gets wider, it actually has the individual leaves off of each branch. So let's throw a fern leaf in here. You don't have to do this. I don't know how this is going to turn out. This is me being brave.
You can do it.
I like
So-
your hand motion of stop.
We believe in you.
Okay, so if I'm going to do my stem first, like so, I would probably do my fern leaf to where I make the branches first. So then I can see, like, as it gets bigger, as it goes down, like so. And then I would add the shape to them so they kind of have like a do shape along the edge.
Yeah.
Now again, this is a small fern leaf, so you can't get as detailed. We can do a bigger one maybe in one of the projects where we really like go in and paint each one. Oh, too much. So then you're just gonna follow that. You're gonna do your branches as you go down. I guess they would be like more stems, not branches. And then you do your little textures.
That looks so good.
You stop it.
Yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, when I'm watching you paint leaves and how good they look, and how the track record for plants dying in the area.
It's a valid point.
It's kind of a funny contrast.
Listen, I can't keep anything alive, not even air plants. Michael got me an air plant one time because he's like, you can do this. You literally don't have to pay attention to it. And it still died.
I don't know what an airplane.
He wasn't even mad. He was like, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I'll show you later.
Okay, cool.
That's why I like snake plants. I just ignore them.
Oh yeah.
And they're fine.
My husband definitely has a green thumb. We have amazing
They're
plants
beautiful.
in our home, and because he's a nurturer, he just takes care of things. For me, I'm like, you're fine. Get yourself some water. Be independent.
He's got legs.
Yeah, so I can paint leaves, but I cannot keep them
You
alive.
paint a mean leaf.
Thanks for telling everyone, Keenan. They would have never found that out.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I must tell you guys a story. When our store first opened up, and Let's Make Art, it was kind of bare because and it's still kind of bare because we haven't done like our hard opening where we filled it, and it's just been crazy. And I really wanted plants for the store opening because I love plants. They bring so much life to a place. And so I was like, Michael, that's my husband. I'm like, can we borrow our plants and put them in my store for the opening? And he's like, no. And I'm like, okay, great. So then I go to Brock and I'm like, Brock, we're gonna go get our plants. And he's like, did you ask Michael? And I said, yes, I asked Michael. And he's like, okay. So we like pull all the plants in our truck. We drove them over to the store. We put them all out. We're setting it up, and Michael walks into the store, and he's just like, what? He's like, why are all of my plants here? And Brock is like, he turned to me, he's like, you told me that you asked him. I said, I did ask him. He just said no. And he was like,
Brock have felt so betrayed.
Brock was so mad at me, and he felt so bad because Michael loves his plants. Don't worry, most of them survived. We only had like 2 casualties, and Michael came and rescued them like 4 days later. He just like took them back in the night, so
Most of them survived.
it's okay.
When Brock told me, he's like, I thought I was going to witness a divorce. I thought they were going to get divorced in
Like,
front of my eyes.
Michael never gets mad at me, but oh man, he was so mad at me. He never gets mad, but he like just looked at me and walked out, and I was like, oh, what did I do?
Shoot.
And then I'm like, I don't have time to worry about this. I got to open up a store in like a day. So I just kept on going.
We just were following the like, it's easier to beg for forgiveness. than
Yeah,
ask for permission
exactly.
philosophy. Even though you did actually.
I actually did ask for permission, and he clearly said no.
That's
Like,
hilarious.
sweet, thanks.
I'm like, okay, great, thanks.
They looked so good.
They added
did.
so much. I regret nothing.
No.
They really were
Placed
so
to
important.
life. They really brought it to life. I didn't realize you had asked him beforehand.
No, I
thought you
100% asked him, and he said no.
That makes it even better. Even better.
Oh, can I show yours?
Yeah.
Nicole's doing a green for her leaves, and I love how that's turning out.
Yeah, I like that.
Good for you.
Thanks. Trying something.
Sharona says, my birds look like bats.
My birds look like bats. Well, maybe, I mean, this is a surreal landscape. Maybe they are bats.
Maybe it's a
You
little
know?
spooky landscape. We
Maybe,
don't know.
maybe the world you're making is like Halloween world. I don't know.
Halloween.
And if anything, they're creatures with wings, so I feel like you nailed it.
Yeah. Crushed it.
So when you're doing these leaves, really play up the different sizes. We want some of them tiny, we want some of them medium size, and we want some of them big. I feel like I need to put another fern in there so my friend isn't lonely. So do a fern, you just do the stem, and then you do little stems off of the main one, and they get a little bit longer as you work your way down because they kind of have that triangle shape. And then you do little like ruffle edges. Kind of like our jellyfish. You know how we did that like ribbon edge on the oral arms? Keenan?
Say again?
Just say yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's essentially what we're going to do here.
Perfect. I really enjoy that.
I'm afraid to do a fern. It's so pretty.
Don't be afraid. Just go for it. It's just a piece of paper, Suzanne.
It's true.
It's just a piece of paper.
Not gonna make it any worse.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Well, wait. What do you mean by
What?
that?
Wait,
Wait.
I like
a
said exactly that. I'm like, wait a second.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That
I
can't be
object
right.
to that statement.
You're like, wait, what?
I'm like, yeah. No. And when I did my larger leaves, I kept them closer to the edge because if I put them too far into my painting and they're really big, then they could end up taking over my painting. So when I did the larger leaves, I just did like little peaks of them, like little peekaboos, so then they wouldn't take over the entire composition of the painting.
When you designed this, did you think of someone looking through a peephole?
No, I just really like, whenever I do I just really like clean edges. And I don't, or I like clean, how do I explain this? I just think compositions look really nice when they're tight, like in a circle, especially with landscapes, because I love the idea of like all of this detailed in this perfect little tiny composition, and it's like free of the page. So I don't know if you guys noticed this, but a lot of the landscapes that we do are in circle compositions or like shaped silhouettes, because I just like the idea of keeping it like this. This is what
We call that the raptor arm.
Raptor.
Tight.
Can you tell me how you did the fern edge again?
Yeah.
I couldn't quite see it.
It's just kind of like a ruffle, and it's not perfect. If you look it up close, you're like, that's a little rough.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's just kind of like a wavy edge.
I think I was trying to do mine over like both sides of the line, and I think I just didn't do it.
The ferns look so good, and that adds a lot of texture.
It does. Good suggestion. Like you guys, making these paintings better.
Color Crazy on YouTube said, just decided that mine aren't birds. They are definitely pterodactyls.
Yeah. That's cool.
And Julie said, not large leaves, ... Hank leaves.
Hank leaves. They're thick.
With 2 C's.
With 2 C's.
2 C's.
And while you're getting near the end, you might be like, Sarah, how do I know when this is done? And I'm just going to say something that might not make sense to you, but It's when you look at your painting and you look at it from, like, step away from a second, or look at it a few feet away, and you just notice if there's any gaps or any spaces that need more leaves. If you look at it from farther away and you're like, you know what, I actually don't see any gaps, the rhythm feels good to me within the leaves, that's when you're done. That's it. So I can't say, like, after 7 leaves, you are exactly done. It doesn't work like that. It's your painting. I can't see exactly what you're doing. So you just have to trust yourself to just, like, go with it and just be like, you know, this feels right.
My fern looks more like a Christmas tree.
No, your fern looks exactly like a fern, Suzanne. Yeah. It looks great.
It makes me think of those Charlie Brown Christmas trees. It's like super smart.
That's what they are. That's what mine are,
I'm
too.
like adding like lines, like, no, I gotta fill it in. It's too sparse. I like it better now.
It looks great.
It was too sparse for a minute.
Lauren has a joke, I think,
I love jokes.
but it may also be a genuine question. I'm not sure.
Oh, not a great way to start, Keenan.
She said, why can't you hear the pterodactyl use the restroom?
The
Why?
P is silent. I know that one.
Yay!
That's definitely a joke.
That's
She
a
just
good one.
answered. That's awesome.
That is a good one.
That's one of my favorites.
That's so funny.
Emily asked if I could do the fern on a larger piece of paper. Yeah. I'll switch to my 6. I'll use this guy. So, now again, this is me just like what in my mind what a fern is. When you have reference photos to look at, super helpful, but I'm just gonna like go for it. So, I'm gonna do my stem, like so. And then you're gonna do the little stems coming out, and they're gonna get a little bit longer as you go down. So you have your basic shape, and then I go along like the bottom and just kind of like do some like little kind of like scallop, like a scallop edge. But there's different kinds of fern. Some of them actually have little like mini stems off of here, and then you do the little ruffle edge on those. So just, if you have a specific fern in mind, then take a look at that and see what it's doing. But basically, it's just like a bunch of tiny little leaves off these. So I'm kind of just doing dashes.
Have you ever seen rabbit's foot ferns?
No.
So shape-wise, they kind of look like this, but their roots are like, they look like fur. They're like fuzzy, so it looks like there's little rabbit feet like in the. It's kind of creepy.
Interesting.
It's kind of creepy, but
Like the roots, like this
the
part
roots,
that's
yeah.
underneath the dirt?
Yeah, but the roots like are on top of the dirt. Some of them, and they're like fuzzy. I have one at home. I bought it. I was like, this is creepy, and I like it.
Please send me a picture. I would
Yes.
love to see it.
It's really cool. I got it at like Walmart for like $5. Like it was just one that I just like saw and was like, yeah, I need that.
If she
That
sends
was
me a
cool.
pictures, I'll put it on our Instagram stories so you know.
Yes, so cool.
Better be a good picture.
So there's kind of your basic idea for a fern. If I were to do this again, I'd probably like keep them a little bit closer. This one, the spacing is probably a little bit wide. That's okay. There's so many different kinds of ferns out there. There's got to be one that has spaces in between like that.
I just found a fern structure or
Oh, yeah?
anatomy.
Ooh.
Fronds? What are they called? Fronds?
No,
Just joking.
I don't think so.
I don't know what they're called. I just remember your beach sunset, and people are like, they're called fronds, the palm fronds.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
that's
Palm
right.
fronds. Yeah, that was embarrassing.
I feel like when you're in front of the camera all the time, you're bound to have some embarrassing moments.
100%.
Like, it's just gonna happen.
I think I've said this to Keenan, but I never realized how much I didn't know until I was being recorded all the time. And then I'm like, I know nothing.
the last tutorial, there's a good quote that says, "We get most things wrong most of the time."
Yeah, we
Or
do.
along those lines.
We get most things wrong most of the time. Okay, I think I just need one little, maybe two little more things on mine, and then I'm going to be done. Here, and maybe I'll add a little guy in here. Yeah, that feels good. Okay. So, how are you guys doing?
Good.
And we named this project Surreal Mountains, and if you watched our pre-recorded tutorials, I talked a little bit more about that, and I'll talk about this now. Surreal is like a type of art, like a theme, like Cubism or Impressionism, and it's associated with kind of like dreamlike qualities, as in there is a juxtaposition of items that are recognizable but aren't usually seen together or in a certain form. So if you think of like Salvador Dali, he is a surrealist painter where like the melting clocks or the elephants with really, really long skinny legs, like those kinds of things. So even though this is like a little baby step into surrealism, as in we recognize leaves, we recognize mountains, however, the size of these leaves compared to these mountains are not necessarily true in what you would see to nature. And so that's where it kind of has that kind of dreamlike quality. And it's a super fun way to paint, because really you can just use your imagination, everything goes, super cool. So really have fun with this project, and that's why I really emphasize that whatever you do, it's not wrong, because you're painting your imagination, you're making it up, it doesn't have to be totally realistic. I think we're ready to hold them up. You might not be done, Suzanne, but I'm gonna.
I think I am.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's do our slow pan across.
Okay.
Is this in
I think I'll be right.
Nice, good.
So he'll start with.
I'll come a little closer.
Oh, we're already rolling on the side pan.
Oh,
It looks
okay.
so good.
Okay.
I'll start far. Suzanne's. Nice, very nice. Look at those colors. Oh, textures. Look at those.
Commentating.
Oh. The unique leaves are a little lighter and then dark in the front. That's
Yeah,
nice.
you caught it.
Oh, yeah.
I love that Nicole did that.
Awesome.
I was
Oh,
inspired
yeah.
by your.
I love
front
that.
and the back.
Yeah.
The atmospheric.
Yeah, perspective. Great job. You guys, first of all, thank you so much for coming and painting with me tonight. It's so fun. I really hope you guys have a great time, because I have an amazing time. If you painted this, share it. I know it's so scary putting your work out there, but people really appreciate seeing creative outlets. And I know that we think that people are going to judge us. First of all, if somebody's judging you on your painting, then maybe you don't even need that person in your life, because that's negative energy right there. And second of all, if anything, people are excited to see it because they think, hey, if she can do that, maybe I can do that. And then we can create together. And then now you're best friends with somebody, and you're welcome. Because we just created strong friendships right there. So if you put it on Instagram, tag us in it, Let's Go Make Art, or you can use the hashtag Let's Make Art. And Facebook is the same. We have a wonderful Facebook community for watercoloring called Let's Make Art Watercolor. And we also have a Facebook group for lettering. So if you're interested in brush lettering, that's something that we have started. It's called Let's Make Art Lettering. And that brings us to Nicole.
Okay, we're gonna do this.
Yes, we're doing it.
Okay, I know I sneak peeked for so long. First of all, Sarah and I did the Q&A last night on the beginner lettering series. So if any of you haven't watched that and you're curious about what the heck we're talking about, you can go back and watch that. But my name is Nicole, and we are going to finally do a lettering subscription box.
Yay! Yay!
And we've been working so hard, so it's so nice to finally be able to announce it. It's going to be a little bit different, so it's going to be a seasonal box, so it's going to be every 3 months rather than every monthly. So nothing's changing with Watercolor. We're just adding a new program for you guys to try out. I'm really, really excited. We're going to start with the brush pens. So the way I built the series is that every quarter it's going to be a different type of tool. So we're going to start with the brush pens. So I brought a few of the projects. So it'll be a similar thing where we're going to be doing some projects together. Maybe Sarah, you can hold
Yeah, I'll
this
hold
up.
these.
So it will be a.
I love it.
I'm so excited. There will be all the information. So if you're wondering, it's on letsfakeart.com, and then there's different headers. So you'll see the monthly watercolor box, and now you'll see a lettering tab.
Yes.
So you'll get all these different pens, so many colors that we picked out, and then so most of them are Tombow, and then I actually also included a Sharpie brush marker, or it's a fabric Sharpie marker, and it's because one of the projects. So a little bonus is that there's going to be 3 different projects, so 1 for each month, and there's going to be different surfaces that we're going to be lettering on. So it's dirty.
That's okay. Look.
The paper's rubbing against Sarah's mic. So.
Oh, sorry. Well, you hold those. So we're going to have different services that you guys can practice your lettering on here. So this is a tote bag. So this is in the box.
It's in the box, so it's going to be blank one. And then one of the projects is we're going to walk through, and I'm going to show you how to letter your own lettering. I know this might intimidate some people, but I promise you there's steps that I will show you to get there. So in addition to all the projects, just really quickly, there's a bunch of also printed practice papers that I made. So for example, this one is you'll have an outline to start you out with, and then there's a bunch of practice pages that we'll go through that will help you with learning and practicing. So all of that information is on the website. It's officially live. We're going to start. So if you want to subscribe and be a part of it, we're telling people to purchase it in a week. So March 26th, I think, was the date that we did. And we're going to start, the tutorials will be released on Fridays.
Starting in April.
Starting in April.
April
So
5th.
the box is going to start in April. You can put it on pre-order now,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
So you can start ordering it. Your box will come to you, and then you can just letter along with Nicole starting in April. And it's going to be so much fun.
There's so many different things that I'm excited to teach you all. So, and if you haven't watched the beginner lettering series, that will be a good thing to start in the meantime.
Yes, great idea.
And we also have a few projects together that we did.
We do. We just like each other, so we're like, hey, let's do this project together. So I'm so excited. It's a lot of fun. And if anything, we've noticed that being able to just have a creative outlet, it's so worth it. It helps our mental health. It's great to have time for you. It's a great way to connect with other people. So if watercolor, you love it and you want to try something else, give lettering a shot. Or maybe you know someone who would really like it and you're like, girl, you need some me time. Here's this. Or come over Friday or whatever, and we're going to do this. So you guys are awesome. We really appreciate it. And I think that's all the announcements, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You guys are great. Bye.